And we are live. Welcome to Olivia's Stories, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, Reddit. I've been a long-time lurker on this social media, as it's one of my absolute favorites, but this is my first time posting. I need an outlet to rant and share my story, and I know Reddit is the perfect platform for that. I hope that by sharing my story here, someone might learn something from it. My family won't talk to me as they have finally seen a reason to go no contact with me, and I have even been cut out from the will and inheritance. Even though I wasn't getting much in the first place as my sister is the golden child, I still would have liked something. My husband wants a divorce for betraying him and has currently kicked me out. I'm pregnant, homeless, and living in cheap motels with the little savings I had left that my husband didn't take all these just because I slept with my twin sister's husband and got pregnant. I know you're probably wondering how and why I'm in such a horrible state. Let me tell you, it's all my fault. I was blinded by jealousy and rage, and then I let these bad emotions fuel my anger. To understand my story and where I'm coming from, let me tell you my story. My name is Lily, and I am a 25-year-old woman. I was married to Devin, a 26-year-old man, but we're currently heading for divorce. I have a twin sister named Lillian, and she is married to Leonard, a 25-year-old man who is also Devin's cousin. Crazy, I know. I used to work for my dad's law firm until he fired me after the whole issue went down. Devin comes from a wealthy family, and so does Leonard. And as I've previously mentioned, they're cousins. As for my twin sister, she's an airhead and barely graduated, so she's a Sam. Now picture a younger me with brown long hair and an average face, and picture my twin sister Lillian with her blonde hair, blue babyish eyes, and a banging figure. The good genes skipped me altogether and went to my twin sister. As a result of that, I grew up looking average as hell, but Lillian grew up looking like a total beauty. It was so bad that people would sometimes not believe that we were twins and would make horrible comments on the difference in our appearances and how I looked so average. People also discriminated against me a lot, and Lillian was our parents' favorite golden child. My earliest memories of feeling sidelined and discriminated hit me hard, and it happened during our 7th birthday party. It was supposed to be a celebration for both Lillian and me, but it felt like I was invisible and standing in the shadows. As the party unfolded, the gifts kept pouring in for Lillian. Multiple packages adorned with colorful ribbons were handed to her, while I stood there, barely acknowledged. Compliments about Lillian's beauty poured in, and it left me feeling like an afterthought. The most hurtful moment came with the birthday cake. Instead of having both our names on it, the cake only bore Lillian's name. It felt like a deliberate erasure, as if I didn't matter in my own celebration. I'll never forget when we were 10 on Valentine's Day. A boy actually wrote me a love letter and gave me chocolates, something I'd never really experienced before. It should have been a sweet moment, but it turned sour real quick. See, Lillian, my twin, had already gotten a bunch of Valentine's gifts at school, but when we got home, instead of being happy for both of us, she cried to our parents. The heartbreaking part? They took the chocolates from me and gave them to Lillian. I felt the weight of being overlooked all over again. It wasn't just about the chocolates, it was about being treated unfairly, constantly reminded that Lillian's wishes mattered more. It went beyond just losing a simple gift. It hit my sense of worth, making me feel like my experiences counted for less. As the years went on, Lillian just got more selfish and spoiled. It seemed like she couldn't handle seeing me happy. Whenever something good happened to me, she'd throw a fit until it was taken away. There's this one day that sticks out. When we were 13, I got my first boyfriend, and even though Lillian had plenty of people interested in her, she rejected them all. Instead, she cried at home, telling our parents she wanted the same boyfriend I had and that I didn't deserve anything good. Things got ridiculous when my parents, probably tired of Lillian's constant demands, made me break up with the boy just to make her happy. It was heartbreaking, losing something special not because it was the right thing to do, but to please Lillian's unreasonable wants. Dealing with Lillian's actions left deep scars. It taught me that fairness and kindness sometimes took a back seat in family dynamics. Constantly giving up my happiness for her made me realize I needed to break free from being the overlooked twin. When we hit 16, Lillian's attitude went from bad to worse. I never got a car, but she ended up with 2. Whenever I complained, my parents ignored me and put the blame on me, not caring about how unfair it was. Lillian cared a lot about looks, but wasn't exactly a genius. On the other hand, I was pretty smart. When college time rolled around, I got a scholarship to a really good school. Lillian couldn't get into the same top-notch college, and she lost it. She threw a massive fit, crying for hours. She wanted me to give up my scholarship and stay home so she wouldn't feel left out. It was a crazy demand. For the first time ever, I stood up for myself and said no. Our parents tried to talk me into giving up my college spot, but I stuck to my decision. Crazy enough, our parents caved in and bought her a spot at the same college. It was a clear sign of how messed up our family dynamics were. Instead of encouraging Lillian to work hard, they just gave in to her demands, showing that what she wanted mattered more than anything else. That college incident was a big moment for me. It wasn't just about school. It was about figuring out my worth. I learned that I needed to prioritize my dreams over Lillian's whims. It wasn't easy. She cried, argued, and painted me as the bad guy. But I held my ground, knowing that my education was a chance to break free from being overshadowed. I started college with the baggage of my past experiences. I understood that breaking free from being the overlooked twin would be a challenge. College became my place to shine, where I rocked my studies and embraced every opportunity. Meanwhile, Lillian was messing up, failing without a care in the world. She knew our rich parents would bail her out, but I didn't have that luxury, as my parents would always choose Lillian over me. This difference fueled growing resentment within me. Lillian flaunted our parents' wealth as her safety net, not caring about the mess she made. It wasn't just about her failing grades, it was the attitude, the entitlement that got on my nerves. While I was deep into my studies, Lillian tried all sorts of things to distract me. Party invites, attempts to monopolize my time, and tantrums when I wouldn't give in. But with the newfound freedom of college, I stood my ground. I refused to let Lillian derail my ambitions. Yet, the resentment lingered. Years of being in Lillian's shadow, making sacrifices for her, had left a mark. College gave me space, but the bitterness was still there. Despite the distance, Lillian's presence loomed over my life. The hate I felt was a result of years of unfair treatment and sacrifices. It wasn't just about her failing grades. It was about the deep sense of unfairness in our relationship. In a weird way, Lillian's attempts to mess with me fueled my determination to succeed. The more she tried to pull me down, the more I clung to my goals. It was my way of rebelling against being the overlooked twin, a refusal to let her control my path. College brought me love too, so I ended up meeting Devin. I wasn't really looking for a relationship, but he was persistent and we ended up falling for each other. Love bloomed and Devin became a big part of my life. When Lillian found out about us, things went crazy. She threw a tantrum and cried to our parents that she wanted Devin. See, Devin came from a wealthy family and was good-looking, and Lillian thought I didn't deserve a guy like that. Our parents, used to Lillian's demands, tried to convince me to break up with Devin. It was another example of Lillian's wishes getting priority over my happiness. But this time, I wasn't willing to sacrifice my happiness for Lillian's crazy demands. Lillian, not one to back down, went even crazier. She tried to get Devin's attention, thinking her charm could win him over. But Devin, to Lillian's disappointment, stuck by me and turned down her advances. It showed his loyalty and commitment to our relationship, and I was so proud. Amidst all this drama, I hit a breaking point. I couldn't hold it in any longer, and I spilled to Devin about the years of unfair treatment from Lillian and our parents' selfishness. Growing up in the kind of household I had made me strong and resilient, but I hit a break point and I shared the pain I had been carrying. Devin's reaction was surprising but comforting. Instead of being turned off, he was shocked by what I had gone through. In that moment, he became more than just a boyfriend. He became a solid and supportive presence by my side. His understanding and willingness to stand with me made me love him even more, and I knew I was spending the rest of my life with him. As time went by, Lillian's determination to never back down only got stronger. If she couldn't have Devin, she set her sights on someone just as good, Devin's cousin, Leonard. It seemed like Lillian, driven by envy and the need to prove something, was aiming to get what I had, or even more. I wouldn't be surprised if Lillian snooped around on Devin's social media to find out more about his cousin. Before long, she started dating Leonard, who, not shockingly, also came from a wealthy family. This move really ticked me off. Lillian didn't just stop at pursuing someone similar to Devin. She made a point to rub it in my face, bragging about her conquest and making it crystal clear that she would never let me surpass her in any way. As the years passed, we both graduated from school. I, of course, graduated with flying colors. I continued her education by going to law school and eventually working at our dad's law firm. Lillian, on the other hand, managed to graduate, an accomplishment that seemed impressive given her previous struggles, even if it was just scraping through. Of course, my parents threw her a graduation party, but nothing for me. Devin cheered me up, though, and surprised me with my own graduation party with just our close friends. You should have seen the anger on Lillian's face when she found out I also got a party, LOL. A year or two after Devin proposed to me, Lillian selfishly and angrily pushed Leonard into proposing to her, too. Lillian had this relentless need to compete and outdo me in every aspect of life. It wasn't just about relationships anymore. It was a clear demonstration of her constant desire to overshadow me, making sure she always had what I had, and more. The relationships between Lillian, Leonard, Devin, and me became increasingly complicated. Lillian's choices seemed to be driven by an insatiable need to one-up me, to ensure she remained in control and on top. Leonard, unfortunately, got caught in the crossfire and was manipulated into becoming a pawn in Lillian's game of comparison and rivalry. I couldn't help but feel a mix of frustration and sympathy for Leonard, who found himself entangled in Lillian's web of jealousy and competition. The relationship between Devin and Leonard morphed into a battleground where Lillian sought victory at any cost. If Devin got a new car, she wanted Leonard to get it too, even when she knew Leonard's family was not as wealthy as Devin's. Lillian's actions messed up not just our relationships, but also screwed with the family bonds we used to have. Our happy moments, like engagements, got messed up because Lillian selfishly wanted to copy everything I did. It wasn't about love or real connections for her. It was all about proving she could be as good as, or even better than, me in every way. Being the one who's always been stuck in Lillian's shadow really stung. The times we should have celebrated together now felt like battles, each one dominated by Lillian's need for attention and triumph. This whole situation was a harsh reminder of how messed up things can get when there's unhealthy competition in a family. Lillian's constant need to show she's better overshadowed the unity that should have held us together. It left me with a mix of feelings, frustration, and resentment towards Lillian for her actions, and sympathy for Leonard, who got caught in the mess. So I went for a destination wedding, and guess what? Lillian decided to copy the whole thing: venue, flowers, and even our vows. I still can't figure out how she managed to snag mine and Devin's vows. It's kind of ironic, you know? My idea of a destination wedding, which was supposed to be a personal choice, turned into Lillian's wedding blueprint. She didn't just take inspiration, she straight up tried to copy every single detail of my special day. Instead of celebrating our uniqueness, Lillian turned it into this weird competition. The whole point of a destination wedding is to make it personal and special, but Lillian's version just felt like a cheap imitation of mine. I thought imitation was supposed to be flattering, but in this case, it just felt like she was crossing some boundaries. Lillian not only wanted to copy my choices, but also went as far as taking our intimate vows. It added this awkward layer to what should have been a uniquely personal celebration. So things got pretty messed up when Lillian went too far. She made sure our parents left me with next to nothing in their will, and by little, I mean practically nothing. Here's what happened. Our parents announced they had sorted out their will, but would keep the details secret until they passed away. Lillian, being Lillian, somehow got hold of the will and threw a massive tantrum. In response, our parents caved and revised the will, ensuring I received the absolute minimum. They then had the audacity to call me, apologize, and spill the bitter news. Devin was out of town for work during all this, so I had no one to vent to. Fueled by frustration and a bit too much alcohol, I decided I needed to confront Lillian about this blatant unfairness. I reached Lillian's house, found her out, but her husband Leonard was there. Despite the awkwardness from Lillian's manipulations, Leonard still tried to be friendly whenever he saw me. I asked about Lillian, and he said she was out running errands. That's when a reckless idea hit me. Years of resentment towards Lillian for everything she put me through made me bold. I saw this as a chance to finally get back at her. Fueled by alcohol, I decided to cross a line and sleep with Lillian's husband. I told Leonard to let me in, saying I'd wait for Lillian. In no time, I made my moves, and Leonard, falling for it, ended up in bed with me. Leonard and I started this secret thing, and I gotta admit there was a messed up thrill in getting back at my sister without her having a clue. Leonard at first felt guilty and hesitant, but I managed to talk him into it. We'd sneak into their bedroom, spend hours together, and Lillian wouldn't suspect a thing. Sometimes I'd barely make it out before she showed up. There was this one close call when I saw her car pulling in, so I scrambled to get dressed and told her I'd been waiting in the living room. Cheating on my husband weighed on me big time, but I convinced myself Lillian deserved payback for all the crap she put me through. It turned into this twisted mix of feeling satisfied for outsmarting her and grappling with the guilt of betraying my husband. As the affair kept going, the thrill of revenge clashed with the guilt. And every secret meetup with Leonard added another layer to this messed up web of emotions, blurring the line between revenge and just screwing myself over. Keeping this affair under wraps became a real challenge. Sneaking around, making up excuses, and hoping Lillian wouldn't catch on turned into a daily struggle. What started as a way to get even with Lillian slowly became this web of lies and deceit messing with my head. The guilt started to hit hard. What was once this low-key feeling turned into a full-on surge, threatening to drown out any satisfaction from getting back at Lillian. I kept telling myself she deserved this, but that justification was getting shakier by the day, especially as the emotional toll of all the lies and secrets piled up. At one point I had to ask myself, was it really worth it? Was I gaining anything by doing this, or was I just messing up my own morals? The messed up emotions, the lies, and the constant risk of getting caught made me realize that revenge, even if it felt good at first, came with its own cost. A cost that got harder to ignore with each passing day. My affair with Leonard messed things up between me and Devin big time. It wasn't Devin's fault. He was still his loving self. But the guilt ate at me every time I looked at him, making things feel heavy. Devin noticed the change and thought it was all on him. So he went all out with gifts, spending more time with me, and even cutting back on work trips, thinking it would fix whatever he believed was broken. Little did he know the issue was all in my head and had nothing to do with him. Our physical connection faded away over months, and when I found out I was pregnant, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Shock and fear took over because there was no way the baby could be Devin's. We hadn't been intimate for ages, it had to be Leonard's. It felt like the consequences of my choices were catching up with me. As someone who loves kids, the reality of keeping this baby was a huge, daunting impossibility. With a mix of emotions, I quickly texted Leonard and sent him a pic of the positive pregnancy test, breaking the news. Devin's efforts to fix things only added to the mess and guilt I felt. His attempts to show love and dedication, thinking he was the problem, made everything more complicated. I was dealing with guilt, and I knew there was a storm coming my way as karma and that the storm wouldn't spare Devin from its impact. Funny enough, the storm came quick, sadly. The text I meant for Leonard accidentally landed in Lillian's lap. She went ballistic. Lillian didn't just stop at getting angry. She took screenshots of the text and broadcasted them to everyone. Devin, our parents, friends. My phone went haywire, and if it were a bomb, it would have exploded from all the calls. Turns out Lillian was already suspicious of Leonard cheating, so she snooped through his texts. What she didn't see coming was finding out her husband was cheating with none other than her twin sister. The fallout was like a storm of insults thrown at me from every direction. Even more insane, Devin wasn't even around. He was out of town for work and supposed to return the next day. I only got wind of Lillian sending the screenshots to Devin during her angry text rant. Everything happened so fast that I could barely catch my breath, let alone defend myself. Lillian unleashed a hurricane of consequences, and I found myself in the middle of the chaos with no shelter in sight. Defending myself became pointless as accusations flew from every corner. Lillian, fueled by anger and betrayal, didn't hold back in tearing me down. The timing couldn't have been worse. Devin was due to return the next day. How would I explain myself to him about what I had done? The fallout hit me like a ton of bricks. When our parents called, they didn't hold back. They screamed through the phone, asking how I could betray my sister. Frustration bubbled up in me because my phone wouldn't stop buzzing with insults. I lost it on them, airing out everything they'd done to me. But they didn't care. Instead, they dropped the bomb that I was getting cut out of the will, unless I ditched the pregnancy. I stood my ground and they promptly blocked me. Every now and then, they'd unblock me just to repeat their demand, but I refused every time. Devin's reaction was just as harsh. A single text came through, bluntly telling me to clear out of the house by the time he got back the next day. No room for explanations, and he went ice cold, ignoring my calls and texts. Our parents' rejection hurt deep, and Devin's quick decision to cut ties without hearing me out added to the pain. As the sense of loneliness and hopelessness set in, I had to wrap my head around the idea of starting over from scratch. Despite the hurt and feeling abandoned, a stubborn determination kicked in. I stuck to my guns, refusing to compromise my principles even if it meant dealing with isolation and the challenge of being a single parent. I found myself stuck in a real mess. Devin is usually the sweetest guy, but he can turn stone cold when he's pissed. I knew facing him would be a disaster, so I grabbed my stuff and left before he could confront me. I had nowhere to crash. I couldn't turn to my sister or parents, so I ended up in a cheap motel, a far cry from where I used to be. On the way there, I found out Devin had cleaned out our joint account, leaving me with just a fraction of what we once had. Leonard's been radio silent, no word from him, and my dad shut the door on me at his law firm. Despite the chaos, I'm sticking to my guns about keeping the baby. Right now, I'm in this motel, teetering on the edge of being homeless if I can't scrape together some cash soon. It's a mess, and I regret every move, especially letting jealousy and anger guide my actions. Devin's not saying much. Besides the initial text booting me out of the house, he only sent another one saying I should have a working phone for him to send someone with divorce papers. It felt like a slap in the face, a brutal reminder of how fast my life switched up. I've begged Devin in multiple messages, pouring my heart out, but he's not biting. His silence makes me feel abandoned. Here I am, stuck in a motel room that feels more like a prison cell, dealing with the consequences of my choices. I'm basically homeless. I'm facing the harsh reality of starting from scratch. In quiet moments, regret hits hard for letting jealousy and anger steer me wrong. Lillian's beauty and my insecurities led me down a destructive path, leaving me with wrecked relationships and an uncertain future. Keeping the baby adds another layer of stress to this already messed up situation. I'm dealing with the truth. Actions have consequences beyond what I expected. The road ahead is tough. Either ways, thank you for listening to my story. I know I must face the consequences for what I have done, and there's nothing I can do about it. I just hope that by sharing my story on this platform, someone else won't make the same mistake that I did.